Hello and welcome to my channel Close to the Edge. My name is Pat, where we talk about all things prog rock, classic rock, heavy rock, and maybe even a sticker rock. Stick around, you never know. Today we're going to do a ranking of one of the greatest rock bands of all time, Led Zeppelin. A few of my subscribers have asked me to do a Led Zeppelin ranking, but I had to wait for my good friend Kevin, who's on my left here, who is a fanatic Led Zeppelin fan, and myself and Kevin go back a long way, 7 years ago.
It would be, Pat, since we're about 4, I'd say. Long way.
Kevin got me into Led Zeppelin back in the late 70s.
79, Pat,
Yes,
I got into them,
late 70s. And Led Zeppelin were formed in 68. Jimmy Page, of course, came from the Yardbirds, and you had John Paul Jones, who was a brilliant session man. And they formed a team with Robert Plant and Bonzo on drums, John Bonham, who unfortunately died in 1980, and that's why they split up. And I always think they're one of the few bands that didn't continue after someone died in the band.
Correct. One
of the very few, and I have an awful lot of respect for Led Zeppelin for doing that. Yeah. But anyway, we're going to rank their 8 studio albums from 1969 to 1979. I'm not going to include Coda, which was brought out in 1982 to fulfill contractual with Atlantic
obligations, with Atlantic Records.
So we're not going to do that. But anyway, Kevin's going to go first, and these are our rankings for Led Zeppelin.
Okay, Pat, thanks very much. First album I'm going to rank at number 8 would be Into the Outdoor, their last album. A very good album. I first heard this album when I was 15, back in 1979, and at that time you and I, we would have had maybe 5 or 6 albums apiece.
Or we hadn't much at all.
No.
Probably all Deep Purple, were they?
Probably Deep Purple and Rainbow and maybe Paranoid.
Yeah.
Or a bit of Tin Lizzy, whatever. But back then, an album was a big investment.
It was.
So at this point, I'd only heard 1 or 2 tracks by Led Zeppelin. And called down to a friend of ours who had just bought Into the Outdoor. It just came out a month before, August 79. So I was sitting down listening to this, expecting to be blown away. And I thought, wow, it's starting off well with In the Evening. Great track.
Oh, brilliant track, yeah.
And although I like a lot of the album now, back then, when I heard it, it was a bit underwhelming. So I wasn't really blown away, and
did it put you off then?
Put me off for a year or so, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
And because, we were used to listening to Deep Purple and Rock and Paranoid and Rainbow Rising, all these great albums. So I didn't think much of it at the time. I got to like it in later years, but no, that's why it's in number 8, and I'd imagine it'd be in most people's number 8
probably is
position.
It's in my number 8. I'm going to show it next.
Yeah, so a very good album.
I have it on CD here, the remastered version. I like Calypso Amber on this. I think this is the best track on the album. I
do. I think it's about twice as long as it needs to be, but I still think it's a good track.
And In the Evening, of course, is excellent as well. If I was giving this a rating, I would give it probably an 8 out of 10, Kevin.
Well, you know me, I'm probably the biggest Zeppelin fan you know.
Yeah.
I would give it a 6 out of 10.
Would you go with that low on
it? I would, because yes, you can argue it was going in a different direction, this, that and the other, but to be honest with you, Pat, I think Jimmy Page just wasn't plugged in on this one.
But I'll give you the reason why I give this an 8 out of 10. I'll put it down there. It's because my hi-fi went bang. I had no hi-fi in around 90, and all I had was a tape cassette. And I had only one album on cassette at the time, and that was it.
That was it, right, fair enough.
And I played it and played it.
Yeah, so you played it to death.
So I know the album inside out, but it's still, out of all their albums, their worst studio album.
Yeah, it's below par from what came before.
But not worst in a bad sense. Like, you have some bands whose album would be 2 out of 10.
Oh yeah, rubbish.
But
no, it's not rubbish. I would consider it a very good album. But trying to be fair, and obviously I'm a Zeppelin nutcase fanatic on them, I would still only give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's a very good album.
Okay.
With a couple of great tracks, but a lot of sort of filler. So that's why it'd be number 8 for me anyway.
Okay, and it's my number 8 as well. So what's your number 7?
This gets difficult now, of course, with Zeppelin, because they have such good albums.
Oh, it's going to get very hard.
I'd probably have Presence at 7. At number 7. And the only reason being, really, Pat, it's a great album. I love it. It's a heavy album. But unlike a lot of its predecessors, it doesn't have a lot of variety in it. like tonally and musically, it's, you know,
I think it's
yeah,
all
there's
similar
funky
then.
and there's blues in it like T for One, and there's the amazing prog,
Achilles' Last Stand.
Achilles' Last Stand,
Yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely.
I like everything on it. I think it's a fantastic album. I love it, but you have to put something at number 7.
Of course you do.
So for me, the only reason really that it's at number 7 would be for that reason that there's not a lot of variety on it. But I do like everything on it.
What would you give it out of 10?
Oh, I'd give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. That's high.
Yeah.
That's high.
That's high, yeah. It's a great album.
Now, so anyway, my number 7, and this might surprise people, is Led Zeppelin 3. Might surprise you that I have it so low.
It would.
Yeah,
I'm disappointed even.
yeah. Released in 1970, Kevin, I believe.
1970, yeah.
Well, when I heard this album first, right, I was blown away by the first track, obviously, The Immigrant Song. I think a lot of people are. But at that time, you must remember, when I heard that, I was into Purple, Sabbath.
You were similar to me when I heard Intro the Outdoor.
Yes, so when I heard that first, and I heard all this acoustic stuff like Tangerine,
Yeah.
there's one,
Gallows Pole.
Gallows Pole.
On
Just
the
didn't
horse
do that-
stomp,
Yeah,
yeah.
didn't do that for me.
But I like Irish traditional music.
Yeah,
I've
you do.
always liked folk.
More so than I would.
Which
yeah.
is one of the reasons why I like Jethro Tull a lot, they included. But a lot of people don't realise Led Zeppelin had an awful lot of folk music in their music.
They had. But I'd still give that a 9 out of 10 though, Kevin. And as I said, it's a 9 out of 10 album,
Right.
which is a high ranking.
Of course it is, yeah.
Just because it's number 7 doesn't mean
Okay.
it's... I love the album now.
Yeah.
I play it now. It's an excellent album.
Okay.
Anyway, that's my number 7.
Interesting. Okay, number 6, moving on. Again, difficult to pick, but something has to be picked. I would probably have Houses of the Holy. And a lot of people would probably be surprised at that because for some people it's their number 1 album.
When was that released, Kevin?
73, Pat. And it's the reason I'd have it in that position is it's a brilliant album.
Oh,
But there would be a couple of fillers on it, in fairness, even though I like them. Like The Crunge is a tribute to James Brown, and Jamaica is a Led Zeppelin, reggae Led Zeppelin style. Now, I like them, but they would be subpar compared to No Quarter and The Ocean, and The Song Remains the Same, and
Oh, especially
Over the Hills and
Same.
Far Away, Rain Song. I mean, the quality on this album is fantastic. But I think it's just slightly, if you have to nitpick, it's slightly let down by those 2 tracks. So that's why it's in the position it's in, which is number 6 for me.
Okay.
I'd still give it, Pat, a 9 out of 10. I'd rate that album.
Okay. Well, my number 6 is the same.
Oh,
Same. And I would give this a 9 out of 10 as well. And you said, but I think the very first track, The Song Remains the Same, is so progressive. It's progressive.
well, it's
rock.
originally called The Overture,
That's
and
great,
it was
yeah.
meant as an instrumental. And I
Okay.
think when Plant heard it, then he just penned lyrics and off it went.
But I think it's an amazing track.
Oh, it's fantastic, yeah. It's a fantastic album. Love the cover art as well.
But I love the ocean on this.
Oh, The Ocean's amazing.
It's brilliant.
It's
you know,
brilliant,
really-
yeah, it's
and,
brilliant.
And of course, the cover is in Giant's Causeway up in the north of Ireland,
Yes, County Antrim.
County Antrim.
That's right. It's a lovely cover, isn't it?
It is a lovely cover. Don't
It's
think they get
iconic.
away with doing that today, though, would they?
No, I wouldn't get away with it.
No, they
These
wouldn't.
politically correct times. No, I don't
they
think so.
wouldn't. But anyway, 9 out of 10. House of the Holy.
Right. Well deserved for it.
Now we're getting into the top 5, Kevin.
Top 5, right, Pat? As I keep saying, it's difficult, isn't it? It's like
Oh,
at number 5, after much thought, I'd say, Pat, I'd go with Led Zeppelin 3.
that's a fabulous album. Where did you get that album?
Oh, that's I bought that from the States, from America. That's Classic Vinyl Records.
Yeah, they're supposed to be fantastic.
They are, Pat. They're all analog. They were produced, those ones in particular, the first ones about 1998, and then they were redone in about 2002 or 3 on
Yeah.
200 gram. But they're fantastic pressings of Led Zeppelin.
So
Brilliant.
What do you think of that album?
I love that album. I think it's amazing.
What would you give it?
I'd give it a 10 out of 10 easily.
What's a 10 out of 10 for you?
Yeah, I love it because I like the fact that Led Zeppelin were able to change it up. They weren't a one-trick pony. You have there's a bit of acoustic stuff on the first album,
Like a lot of bands around that time.
but then you have the second album, and then they just went in a different direction with this, which just they were sort of proving that they couldn't be labelled or pigeonholed as just a headbanging hard rock band, even though there is plenty of stuff on it.
Can I ask about that album though? Did Jimmy Page and Robert Plant go somewhere in Wales or something?
They did. They went to Bronyor, which is a place where Robert Plant and his family used to go on holidays to in Wales.
Oh, and they kind of...
And they went back there. There was a house with no hot water, no electricity, just themselves and the girlfriends and wives and a couple of roadies. and they just sort of reconnected with nature, I suppose, after the
That's what
insanity of the touring.
Yeah, obviously. After the after the-
So they were sort of grounding themselves, and that's another reason why I love that album, because it sounds like they are.
That's why it's so acoustic.
It is, and it's got one of the best white blues tracks by anybody ever written since I've been loving you.
Oh, great blues track.
Unbelievable.
Great blues
So
track.
I mean, that's a 10 out of 10 album from me, Pat.
Okay, you said the top 5. All these albums going forward for me now, Kevin, are 10 out of 10. And on any given day or a given month, you might pick one over the other. I'm
Yeah.
not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying at this moment in time,
That's it.
I have to pick him for this ranking.
Yep.
But my number 5 is Led Zeppelin 2, the second album.
Yeah, amazing album.
And a lot of bands, when they have a brilliant first album, their second album is usually a disappointment, isn't it? Usually.
It is, because as they say, you have all your life to make a first album.
Yeah.
But sure, as soon as you make that and it's really good, you're under pressure then to follow it up.
But this did follow up the
well it did.
And of course I have the iconic Whole Lot of Love
Oh,
on
yeah,
it, with
amazing.
that iconic riff
It blew me away, yeah,
at the
amazing.
start of it. And then of course you have the closer. Like the closer on this, Bring It On Home.
Yeah.
Like what a riff.
Yeah, amazing.
What a brilliant, like this is a 10 out of 10, pure class. Pure class.
Into the top 4, Pat, are
It's
we?
the top 4 now.
Right, well, I had to pick 4. 4 for me would be Led Zeppelin 2.
Zeppelin 2. And they're fantastic albums though, and the
The
actual
quality of
album
them.
quality of
Yeah,
them.
well, they're all these are classic records. I bought them when they came out. At the time, I think I was living in Melbourne, as you know, for a long time.
That's
in
right,
Australia.
in Australia, yeah.
I paid about the equivalent of about 40 euros for them at the time.
okay.
They weren't
Very good.
super expensive, but you try and buy them now, they're ridiculous,
Oh, ridiculous price.
because there was only so many, only a few thousand copies of them. But they're amazing.
Yeah.
But as amazing as that is, there is actually, Pat, there is a version of this, the US first pressing. It's called the Robert Ludwig,
Yeah.
which blows this out of the water.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So
I
what-
have it on CD, but
What was your favourite track beyond that album?
Whole Lot of Love, I'd say.
It's iconic though, isn't
It
it?
is, it
It's
is,
the
but
riff on it, and
But can you imagine at the time? You see, these things have to be taken in context. There's someone watching your channel now, and they listen to we say Whole Lot of Love, and they go, "Wow, it's a great rock song." But if it's someone young and they're only discovering all this music from the 60s and 70s, you have to imagine the impact that had at the time.
yeah,
It must have been mind blowing.
1969.
Yeah. Amazing. So, it's a fabulous album. As you said, it's a 10 out of 10. What can you say?
It is a 10.
I could talk all day about it, but I won't. We'll leave it at that.
Well, my number 4 is the first album, Led Zeppelin, and this, again, when I heard this album, first it just blew me away.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Like the track "Dazed and Confused" is just, it is unbelievable, really, because, and you have communication breakdown, a really short little track.
Punkish track almost.
And I know you have a couple of covers on this. There's a Willie Dixon cover on it.
There's 2 Willie Dixons on it.
Two Willie
yeah.
Dixons on this. Like, and then of course you have how many more times on this.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
for a debut album, it's one of the greatest debut albums of all time in
would be.
rock music.
It would be, Pat. There'd be. I mean, if I had to, off the top of my head, I had to pick the 3 greatest for the music we like,
Yeah.
that'd be in there, along with Jimi Hendrix.
And
Probably-
probably in the Court of the Crimson King.
Yeah,
Crimson-
or Black Sabbath,
Black Sabbath.
first
yeah.
album. Yeah,
But that is one of them.
that's one of them for sure. That's an
I give that
amazing
another
album.
10 out of 10. As I said, I can't really
Yeah,
differentiate between.
Yeah, I know
the
it's
top, but
hard.
They're that good. You're number 3.
my number 3 would be Led Zeppelin's first album as well.
Yeah, sure. It's just.
It's awesome. This is another classic records pressing, which are nice. But I have heard the original.
You have the vinyl showing at the back there now as well.
I do, yeah, I
Yeah.
do. But the best sounding one I've heard of that would be the UK original with the turquoise print on it,
Oh, that one, yeah.
which
yeah.
go for thousands now, and that sounds amazing. But that's good enough for me. That sounds fantastic. But a brilliant album, yeah.
What did you think of that when you heard it first now?
It blew me away. It actually blew me away. I couldn't believe it.
That still blows you away. to
Still
this
blows me away. I still get chills listening to it. It's an amazing debut album. And what a lot of people don't, well, not a lot of people, some people mightn't realise, that album, Jimmy Page had a very interesting way of going about things. He produced that album. It was recorded, finished, mastered, the whole lot done by the end of October 68.
Oh, they had
So
it
it's
done in
really a
60.
1968 album for the purpose of when Jimmy Page and Peter Grant were trying to get signed by
Record contract.
record contract, yeah. They brought a completed album with them. Now that might have been done before, but I never heard of anyone doing it before.
Not a completed album.
Not a completed and done. This is it. This is what we're about. It's a great way of doing it. So even though it was released in January '69, it's actually a '68 album, which makes it, all the more incredible.
Of course, they got their contract, didn't they?
They did, and the album that came out before it, Jeff Beck's Truth album, that's an excellent album. But for me, anyway, comparing one to the other, Led Zeppelin blows them out of the water.
That's night and day.
The dynamics on the panel,
Night
the
and
thing,
day.
the light and shade,
Night and day. My number 3, anyway, is the iconic Led Zeppelin album. Of course, a lot of people who are not really into rock music, but everyone knows Stairway to Heaven. It's actually, there's no title on this album. I know we call it Led
It's
Zeppelin,
untitled,
but
that's
it's
right.
untitled album.
We call it 4.
4, and what's the other one? they call it?
So people call it the Runes album.
The Runes album.
Yeah.
But I think the very first track on this album, Black Dog, is progressive rock.
Do you?
The time signature
Stop, start.
changes, stop start. And I know musicians who find the drumming on that very, very difficult.
Well, the drummer's playing in a different time signature,
Yeah,
isn't it?
he's
But they come together on.
They come together and then they go off again.
Then they go off again.
That's
yeah.
progressive rock.
It's clever.
And I know drummers who can't play that.
It's clever.
Of course, obviously you have Stairway to Heaven on this. But would you believe my favourite track on this album is When the Levee Breaks? I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But you have Going to California on this as well. It's just the Battle of Evermore.
Yeah, fabulous. The first time anyone
Like,
ever.
it's a 10 out of 10. And if you haven't heard this album,
you must be
you
from another planet.
only know Stairway to Heaven of it, go and listen to the rest of it, because it's absolutely 10 out of 10.
Yeah, brilliant.
That was my number 3.
Okay, number 2 we up to.
Down to the last 2.
Again, difficult, but and this can change more than any of the other albums. But my number 2 would be Led Zeppelin 4 as well.
Yeah.
And when I play that album, of course, there has to be stories behind the music. It makes it what it is. After, as you remember, I said at the start when I heard Into the Outdoor, I was a bit underwhelmed. Minding the few shillings that I had, I thought, right, an album was a big investment for fellas like us, 14, 15-year-olds. So it took me a year later before there's a bit of a story to Led Zeppelin 4. I had my eye on this girl, you see, now. I got brave and I asked her out. Long story short, we ended up in the sitting room, in the lounge of her house, and when I went in to sit down, her best friend was there. So I instantly took that as a bad omen. So the girl is sitting over there, her friend is in between us. I thought, Jesus Christ, I'm done. And after a bit of small talk anyway, things started quieting down a bit. I ran out of things to say.
As you do.
And as you do at a 15-year-old, and getting a bit awkward anyway. And I suppose to break the silence, she got up anyway and went over, and they had a fine big music centre. Remember those old 3-in-1
Oh yeah,
music
3-in-1s. Yeah.
And she had a couple of older brothers that picked out one of his albums, and she came over with this. And she said, you ever heard this album before? I said, no, Led Zeppelin. And when I looked at it, because of the cover, Pat, I thought it was folk music or something. I thought, Jesus, what's she putting on now? So I waited anyway. She dropped the needle on and sat down and gave it a bit of volume. And the start of Black Dog came on.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And that was it. I wasn't worried about her best friend, not only the music. And when side 1 was finished, that's it. I was gone.
You were out.
And that album, Led Zeppelin 4, started me on my journey with Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And as you know, even as early as 1980, within a couple of months I had them all.
You had them all. You're a fanatic on Led Zeppelin.
And
That's an interesting story, though, Kevin, in fairness.
So look, there has to be some way of anchoring you to an album or what have you.
Yeah, and
so,
that's the thing I think about music. Going back when we were young, you'd always associate something with it.
And we didn't have the internet.
No, we had no internet.
And it wasn't even on the radio. It's not like in America where they had the FM stations, or in Australia.
No, over here, no.
We didn't have that.
We had nothing over
So
here.
it was word of mouth. And the fact that it makes it what it is.
No, we had nothing over here. We had a local radio station that was playing diddly diddlies.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's it.
And Boney M or
And
whatever.
Boney M, whatever else,
top
yeah.
at the time. My number 2, this is quite difficult, is Physical Graffiti. Probably one of the greatest double studio albums of all time. Released in 1975, Kevin, is that correct?
That's right, yep.
And there was a couple of tracks that they had in the recording session for the House of the Holy were on this, and further back, is that correct?
That's right, yeah. That's right.
And even the track House of the Holy is on this.
Bit of an in-joke, I think.
I think of an in-joke.
Zeppelin, yeah.
But you have the infamous, I call it, Kashmir.
Oh, brilliant.
That's a prog track.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's prog.
Yeah.
In My Time of Dying.
Richie Blackmore heard that and was inspired to go and write Stargazer.
off a rise.
He said.
So he said, yeah. And in fairness to Richie Blackmore, he's always honest in what he says. But I think this is just an unbelievable double studio album. And In My Time of Dying.
Yeah, amazing.
It's pure class. That's my number 2.
A 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. I presume it's your number 1, Kevin, because that's the only one.
That's the only ones left, yes. The mighty, where are we? There we go. The mighty Physical Graffiti. What an album. I don't know what to say about this album that hasn't been said. Amazing.
Would you think now, I know people who are not into Zeppelin, say as much as you are, or as much as I am, they would be. And they say the side 3 and 4, side 3 in particular, is a letdown from the other sides.
No, I wouldn't agree with that at all.
No,
I think it's one of the few double studio LPs that's successful in terms of...
Flows.
It flows, but if I play this album, it's such a good album. I don't just play tracks off this album. I know I'm a big fan, but I don't play tracks. I have to sit down and play the whole album.
But what I like about that album more than anything else, because there's different genres on.
Of course, that's what I was getting to. There's the variety in it is amazing.
The variety on it, because side 3 is a more mellower.
Yeah, it is. In the Light and 10 Years Gone and all those tracks, and it's a fantastic album. I don't know what you can say about it. I think along with the Beatles, the White Album, and maybe the Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street, Jimi Hendrix, Electric Ladyland,
and maybe the Lamb by Genesis.
And the Lamb by Genesis, Tales from Topographic Oceans, if you're a Yes fan like we are.
Yeah, another one.
It's a successful double studio album, a brilliant album. I can't say enough about it. My brothers are Zeppelin fans as well, and one of them, Gus, just said that's the greatest album of all time, by any point.
Well, double album I think is one of the greatest.
Yeah, it's amazing.
One of the greatest.
It's amazing. A lot of variety on it. Brilliant.
My number 1 is not that actually, and my number 1 I spoke with is this amazing album, Presence.
Wow.
I think you'd be surprised that that's my number 1.
I am surprised.
Because it has one of the greatest progressive rock tracks of all time. From any band. Achilles' Last Stand.
Yeah, fabulous.
And I'm a big prog head.
Yeah. Well, we both are.
We love our prog. I think this is a prog album. Really.
Yeah.
It's very proggy. It's different. You were telling me earlier that Robert Plant was in a wheelchair when he sang this.
He was, because just before that album was recorded, 6 months or whatever before, he and his family were involved in a serious car crash on one of the islands in Greece. So he was in a bad way. He damaged his leg. He sung that from a wheelchair. So it was a tough album for him. It was a tough place for him. And what you got to realise as well is, Pat, I think anyway, with Physical Graffiti, they had reached the top.
You think they reached the zenith,
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
But I think this is... But when you think of it, Physical Graffiti and this one after it, they're so different.
Yeah, they are. They're totally different. Yeah.
It all depends which one of these you would have heard first. If you heard this first, it could put you off Led Zeppelin if you're not into progressive rock.
Well, now that you bring that point up, I have to make a point about that album.
Yeah.
And it is that back in the day when we were teenagers listening to Led Zeppelin, Presence was always the album how you gauged how much of a Zeppelin nut you were. Because the weekend Zeppelin fans who just liked Led Zeppelin 4 and maybe What I'd Love, they couldn't get that album at all. But the people like us that liked it, you thought yourself, well, they're the real Led Zeppelin fans.
Oh, I love that album.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree
with that. It's like a test case for...
And actually, I love the cover with this kind of symbol. And this, would you believe they showed this cover? Hypnosis did the cover of this to Genesis, and they rejected it.
Oh.
Similar cover with an object.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Page liked it.
Yeah.
It's an iconic cover.
It's a brilliant album. I'm surprised you have it at number 1, but then again, I'm not really.
Well,
when you consider
the 5 my top 5. You can come back to me next week. Physical Graffiti could be my number 1. Led Zeppelin 4 could be my number 1. It just changed.
For me, it's always the two of those.
But I think they're all brilliant albums. But that one, Presence, is just, and nobody's fault but mine. What a track!
Yeah, what a track!
The way that gathers pace.
Yeah. Even the tribute to Elvis, Candy Store Rockin', and then the blues track, T for One. Not as good as Since I've Been Loving You off Led Zeppelin.
What's that other track on that I love actually?
For Your Life, Royal Orleans.
For Your Life.
Funky.
But it's but the musicianship on that, Kevin, is unbelievable.
Oh, it's a brilliant album.
But anyway, that's Kevin and myself's ranking of one of the greatest rock bands of all time. If you like this video, please do subscribe and hit that notification bell. And I'd like to read some of the comments down below. Do you agree with Kevin? you agree with me, or do you have a totally different ranking? You might have, someone might think Into the Outdoors are number one.
Yeah, they're right. Yeah, they might.
They might.
They might. They're entitled to it, it's their opinion.
You never know. But anyway, that's all from us anyway. And whatever you're doing, stay safe and have a nice day. And it's nice to be nice. Anyway, see you the next time here on Close to the Edge. Bye bye.